If your main laptop stopped working today, could you recover your digital life? And I'm not just talking about reinstalling Windows or Linux. I'm talking about your passwords, family photos, tax documents, business files, recovery codes, creator assets, and everything else you depend on. What happens if your Google account gets locked? What happens if your phone holding your two-factor authentication codes break? What happens if your laptop dies right before a trip? Most of us probably have backups somewhere, but the real question is whether we know where they are, whether they are current, and whether we could actually restore them. Today, I want to show you how to build what I call a digital bug out bag. Now, this is not about fear. It's not about paranoia, and we are not preparing for the end of the internet. This is about making sure one broken device, one locked account, or one bad day does not leave you completely helpless. A digital bug out bag is a small, organized, encrypted recovery kit containing the tools, files, and instructions you need to start rebuilding your digital life. And just like a real emergency bag, it only works if you build it before you need it. So let's head back in before I head out to the range and talk about what should actually go in it. Let's get to it. Bow! Now, when people hear the phrase digital independence, they usually think about Linux, self-hosting, privacy, or moving away from big cloud platforms. All of that matters, but digital independence also means knowing how to recover. It means knowing where your important data lives. It means knowing how to access that data when your normal device is unavailable. And it means having enough documentation to rebuild what you actually need. So a digital bug out bag is not a copy of your entire digital life. You do not need every Linux ISO you have collected over the years. You need the things that will be difficult, expensive, stressful, or impossible to replace. That could be your identification records, insurance information, family documents, password manager database, recovery codes, business files, active projects, or Homelab configurations. The kit should answer 4 basic questions. What information matters most? Where is that information stored? How is it protected? And can you actually recover it? If you cannot confidently answer those questions right now, this is worth setting up. Most people are not unprepared because they are careless. Modern technology just makes everything feel more permanent than it really is. For instance, your photos automatically synchronize to the cloud. Your browser remembers your bookmarks. Your password manager fills in your passwords automatically. Your phone approves your logins with your fingerprint or your Face ID. And your cloud storage always seems to be available until something breaks. You may think you have several copies of a document because you can open it on your laptop, your phone, and your tablet. But if every device depends on the same cloud account, you may still have only one real copy. The same thing happens with two-factor authentication. You may secure every account properly, but your authentication app, email access, password manager, and recovery process may all depend on the same phone. If that phone disappears, the whole chain can fall apart. Content creators have another version of this problem. Your finished videos may be stored locally, your thumbnail templates may be stored online somewhere, your sponsored documents may be inside your email, your editing presets may exist only on one computer. Everything feels available because you use it regularly. But if the main machine dies, how quickly can you start working again? Also, Homelab users can run into the same issue. You may have backups, containers, virtual machines, and automation everywhere. But if the server hosting your notes goes down, do you know how to rebuild the servers without those notes? The point is not that everything is going to fail at once. The point is that one failure should not take everything else with it. So let's talk about what should go in this kit. The first thing I would include is a bootable Linux USB. This could contain Linux Mint, Ubuntu, Fedora, Debian, or another distribution you fully understand. A live Linux environment lets you boot a computer without relying on the operating system installed on the internal drive. If Windows stops booting or your Linux installation becomes damaged or corrupted, you may still be able to inspect the drive and recover your files, check the hardware, and connect to the internet. That's why I like tools like Ventoy, and it becomes very useful because it allows you to place several ISO files on one USB device. So instead of choosing one recovery image, you can carry Linux Mint, Ubuntu, Rescuezilla, all together on that one USB. And then the second port is an encrypted external SSD or USB drive. This is where the important files live. You might include scans of identification documents, insurance information, tax records, emergency contacts, family records. You do not need every document you have ever received. Focus on the files you might need urgently if your normal devices or accounts were unavailable. Next, you need a password recovery plan. This does not mean placing all your passwords in a plain text spreadsheet. Do not do that. You might keep an encrypted backup of your password manager database, which is something that I do. Also, your recovery codes or two-factor authentication backup codes and instructions for regaining access to your most important accounts. Also, if you have a hardware security key, think about what happens if it is lost or damaged. Do you have a second key? Do you have backup codes? Do you know which account relies on it? For Homelab users, save the files needed to rebuild your environment. That could include Docker Compose files, Ansible playbooks, a network diagram, server IP addresses, storage layouts, and simple restore instructions. Also, be careful with your .env files, those environment files, because they may contain passwords, API keys, and tokens. And if you decide to back those up, they should stay inside encrypted storage. And then also for content creators like myself, save the assets that allow you to keep working. So that could be like your channel logos or thumbnail templates, or let's say your intro and outro bumpers or files, editing presets or sponsor documents, active scripts, and current project files. You may not have room for your entire raw media archive, and that's fine. Prioritize the files that are difficult to recreate and the projects you are actively working on. Create a folder called Read Me First, and inside that folder, explain what is on the drive and what to do first. Go down and write the instructions in plain language. Do not write them only for the version of yourself who understands every part of the setup. Write them so your spouse or another family member or a trusted person can understand what they're looking at as well, because it might not be just you having to access this stuff. Now let's talk about my digital bug out bag setup and my recommendation. Here's how I would organize the kit. First, I would prepare a USB drive with Ventoy. Then I would copy, let's say, Linux Mint, Ubuntu, and Rescuezilla ISO files onto it. Linux Mint gives me a friendly live desktop. Ubuntu gives me another widely supported option, and Rescuezilla gives me a graphical way to back up and restore a full drive. After that, I would boot from the USB and make sure it actually works. Do not create recovery media and place it in a drawer without testing it. Next, I would prepare an encrypted external SSD. On Linux, I recommend Lux. If I need to access the drive from several operating systems, I might use Veracrypt instead. It all depends. Now, after unlocking the drive, I would create a simple folder structure. Like for instance, documents, recovery codes, passwords, password manager, Homelab, creator files, family, backups, and like I said, that read me first directory, and keep the names obvious. You do not want a complicated folder structure when you are already under stress. And also, before copying files, you can run ls block, because that lists the storage devices connected to the system. This is important because you always want to verify which drive you are working with. You can also run df-h that shows shows mounted file systems and available storage space in an easier to read format. Now, let's say you want to copy your documents folder. You can use something like OrSync with 3 options, and we can use the -A, V, and H. And then we can specify our documents directory, and then we can specify the location on our actual drive, which we created that folder documents. And just to break down the options that we use, OrSync copies the files while preserving the folder structure and showing the progress, which is the V for verbose, and then the H is for human readable, and the A is for archive. Now, your username and mount path will probably be a little bit different from what you're seeing on the screen, so always verify the destination before running the command. Like for instance, you see this says media as the first location. It might say mount MNT, so just verify the location before you run the OrSync command. Avoid your drive, and that's the purpose of running the df-h command, to find out where that drive is located. Now for Homelab files, I might create a compressed archive with the tar command. You can specify the archive name you want to save it as, so we can go homelab-configs.tar.gz, and then you can specify the directory you want to archive. We could do like our Docker directory under our home directory, and that bundles the content of the Docker folder into one compressed file. Now, before archiving configuration files, review them for passwords, like I said, and private keys and API tokens. I would also export my browser bookmarks, because bookmarks are easy to overlook because they synchronize quietly, but they may contain admin portals, research links, documentation, work systems, and other resources that are difficult to remember later. Next, I would back up the password manager using the method supported by the application. I typically use KeepItTechie, so all I have to do is back up the encrypted database, which is just a simple copy of that database. And if the export process temporarily creates an unencrypted file, handle it carefully and remove it after placing the protected copy inside the encrypted drive. I would also save recovery codes for the accounts that control access to everything else. That usually means the primary email accounts, password manager, cloud storage, domain register, financial services, and creator accounts. Now for SSH access, I would say my public key and document where they are used. Private keys need more caution. If I include them, they need strong passphrases and must remain inside encrypted storage. Now, inside the Homelab folder, I would save compose files, Ansible playbooks, and let's say a network diagram, a system inventory, and basic rebuild instructions. Now, inside creator folder, I would save branding, templates, presets, sponsor documents, active scripts, and current project assets. Then I would create the read me first document, and that document might say unlock the encrypted SSD, open the account recovery folder, recover access to primary email accounts, restore the password manager database, verify access to two-factor authentication, restore the most important documents, rebuild only the most critical systems first, and record any changes made during recovery. The instructions should be short and clear. And finally, I would test the drive on another computer, and I would ask these questions. Can I unlock it? Can I open the documents? Can I access the password database? Can I read the instructions? Can I restore a folder? If the answer is yes, then I have more than a collection of backup files. I have a active recovery kit. Now, security and recoverability need to work together. If the drive contains identification, financial records, password, recovery codes, or private business files, it needs encryption. But encryption creates another responsibility. You need a reliable way to unlock it later. If everything is encrypted but nobody remembers the passphrase, the backup may be secure and completely useless. So use a strong, unique passphrase. Do not store that passphrase in a plain text file on the same drive. Think about where emergency instructions should live. That might be a safe, a sealed envelope, or another secure location appropriate for your situation. You might also create two encrypted copies and store them in separate places. Like one could remain at home, another could be stored somewhere safe away from the house. Let's say a safe deposit box. I know a lot of people don't use those nowadays, but that is a great option for you to store things like that. And do not leave the recovery drive connected to the computer all the time. A permanent connected backup can be affected by ransomware or accidental deletions, malware, or power problems. Connect it when you are, let's say, updating or testing it. Then disconnect it and store it safely. And make sure someone you trust at least knows the recovery plan exists. They do not need access to every account, but a recovery system that only one person knows about can become a problem because people die every day, B. Now, this is the most important part of the video. A backup you have never restored is only a guess. Seeing files on a drive does not prove that the backup works. The archive may be corrupted, the encryption password may be wrong, the USB may not boot, the password manager database may require a key file you forgot to save, the written instructions may no longer make sense. You find those problems by testing. So boot the Linux USB, unlock the encrypted drive, open several documents, test the password manager recovery process, read the instructions from beginning to end, and test the kit on a different computer when possible. You should also update the kit every 3 to 6 months. Also add new recovery codes, replace outdated documents, update the server list if you've made any changes to your network, copy current project files, refresh the bootable ISO files when necessary, and write down the date of the last successful test. Once the system is organized, updating shouldn't take all day. It becomes a routine instead of an emergency project. The first mistake is depending on only one cloud provider. Cloud storage is useful, but it should not be the only place your important information exists. Another mistake is assuming synchronization is the same thing as backup. If a deletion synchronizes across every device, the file may disappear everywhere. A version backup allows you to restore an earlier copy. Now, do not store passwords in plain text. Do not forget to save recovery codes. Do not build a bootable USB without testing it. Do not encrypt everything without creating a safe recovery method for the passphrase. Do not assume family members already understand your system. And do not build the kit once and forget about it. Outdated recovery codes and obsolete server information may not help when you need it. Most important, do not wait until something breaks. Recovery planning is much easier when your devices and accounts are still working. It reminds me of that quote we used to say in the Army all the time: prior planning prevents piss poor performance. Now, digital independence is not just about using Linux, self-hosting applications, or moving away from large technology companies. It is about knowing where your important data lives, how to access it, and how to recover when something breaks. Let me know down in the comments what you would put inside your digital bug out bag. And let me know if you want a follow-up video where I build a USB, encrypt the drive, organize the folders, and test the recovery process step by step. Now remember, you do not have to build the perfect recovery kit overnight. Start small, protect what matters, and test your plan before you need it. Keep building, keep learning, and of course, keep it techie.